Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Ryzen 2 as well as Intel's potential response to Ryzen and Ryzen 2 chips, and that response comes later on down the road. But today we also have my brother on here to sort of bounce ideas back and forth with. This is my brother Aaron, who has his own Minecraft-based YouTube channel. I believe it's Minecraft Phenom 08, is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
All right, and we roughly have the same articles pulled up. Obviously, I'm in control of the OBS here, but first we're looking at techarp.com, and I'll link all of these articles in the description down below, as well as his channel for that matter, in case you're interested in Minecraft-related things,
Awesome.
Especially heavily modded Minecraft,
Yes,
specifically.
no doubt.
So looking at Ryzen 2, and we both own several Ryzen well, between the two of us, we own several Ryzen processors. I own something like 4.
And I own 2.
Yeah, so we have some Ryzen experience between the two of us. But we're looking at this right now, Aaron. I have the middle chart there where they have all of the different processors from the 2700X, 2700, 2600X,
Yes.
2600. Anyways, I'm sort of looking through those, and specifically I'm more concerned with price points here, because right now I believe you can get a Ryzen 1700 for like I don't know, 290 or something like that, 280.
That sounds about right. And actually, earlier last summer, I think you could get them for as low as 269 during a sale. I think it was in July because I was in Florida at the time. But yeah, I mean, good.
So I guess my thing with the newer chips is the value, because if you're looking at potentially buying a new CPU, and obviously I recommend at this point just wait and see anyways, because we have a lot of different numbers. Like this chart has a max boost for the 2700X at 4.35 gigahertz, but obviously wait until reviews and that sort of thing come out at this point, because it does have it listed as April 19th. So we're talking less than a month to wait. But speculation-wise, it'll be interesting for me to see whether the 2700X even provides enough headroom where it outperforms the 1700 enough to justify the cost, because the other side to it is the 1700's cost is likely to go down in the meantime as well. So as a gamer, first of all, the 1700 and the 2700X are overkill, but you can apply that same thing to the Ryzen 5. Actually, it looks to be, at least in my mind, it looks like it's a little more competitively priced in that way, because the 2600 being $200.
Yes.
And what's the Ryzen 1600 right now? Like 190, 185, something like that?
That sounds about right.
So obviously I would go ahead and get, especially because most games like clock speed.
Yes. The only thing that scares me about the 2600 that is due to come out, it looks like it's going to have the Wraith Stealth cooler, which is a step down from what the 1600 comes with in the Wraith Spire cooler. So that's a little bit concerning to me anyways.
So the other thing I'm looking at here is because the first generation, I think what AMD's learned from a little bit too is people avoided the 1600X because of the cooler situation.
Yes.
You could with a Spire, and I did it with my own. You could hit 3.85 gigahertz with a Wraith Spire cooler on a 1600, whereas a 1600X was not only more expensive, but also had no cooler included at all, which was dumb to me, because the Spire can cool a 1600X at stock speeds. Like no problem.
Definitely.
No problem. So it looks like one of the ways that they're sort of differentiating here this time around is using the coolers to do that.
And I very much like that. And I think that all the stock coolers, as far as my experience, are pretty good, because like I have a R3 1200, and the Wraith Stealth cooler was definitely adequate for that. And I got mine to 4.0 gigahertz, which was great. And I didn't have any heat issues whatsoever. So
one of the funny things about, because I have 2 right now, Wraith Spire coolers. Both of them came with my APUs. I haven't touched either of them. I want to do thermal testing, which the reason I haven't touched them is I want the thermal compound that's included on them intact for testing. But I haven't actually done that testing, and I mean I'll get around to it eventually. But the problem that I have right now with the pricing, that it looks like the Ryzen 5, or really you can apply this probably to the Ryzen 7 lineup, is that the price point difference is such, and the Spire cooler is it's one of the best stock coolers I've ever seen. In fact, it probably is the best stock cooler that I've personally ever messed around with. That came with a CPU. The problem is, like this Arctic Freezer cooler that I got sent, it retails between $30 and $35, and the price difference is $50 between the 2600 and the 2600X. I mean, if it were me, what I would do is I would buy the 2600 and then invest $30 or $35 down the road in a nicer cooler that would outperform the Spire.
That would work well should they overclock about the same. And the previous generation Ryzen process pretty much did. So that would be one route to go.
And that's what we talked to before we got on here, is that it's likely that we'll see very little. Now, obviously, I'm sure the 2600X is a little bit better bend.
I would think so.
Of all my Ryzen chips, and I don't know if I just get unlucky or what, because I have seen a lot of people be able to get 1700 to 4.0 gigahertz stable. I've not been able to hit 4.0 gigahertz on any of my other Ryzen chips with any kind of stability, except my Ryzen 1800X. So there is some binning going on there, and especially with the Ryzen 7s, with only two different variations, the 2700X and the 2700, what I hope AMD has done is the 2700Xs are like actually the cream of the crop, and the 2700s are everything else, where you will actually see like a legitimate 100 megahertz difference in overclocking, and that may convince people to go that route. Because with 1800X, you're almost guaranteed to get 4.0 gigahertz on it, but you could also get that with the 1700X, and if you're lucky, you can even get that with the 1700s.
Yep.
And at that point, even some of the better 1800Xs struggled to get to 4.1 across all cores.
Yeah.
And mine definitely isn't one of the better ones. I would have to really crank voltage, and I just don't have the cooling to do that. Nor do I really feel like shortening the lifespan of the chip. Nor do I feel like worrying about it, because we're talking about like the biggest thing it does is like Adobe renders, and we're talking a few seconds.
Yeah.
So the frequency difference isn't really a big deal there. So if you're looking at the price points right now, and it doesn't have Ryzen 3s listed, or do you know? Have you seen anything about? Are they supposed to launch at the same time, or?
I don't know, because I haven't seen anything about the Ryzen 3s, so we'll see. I kind of don't think we'll see them in April.
Judging from everything that I'm seeing here, it looks like you're probably right. Because
seen nothing.
If they had the same launch date, it would be weird that they weren't listed in any of the leaks, they weren't in any of the leaked benchmarks, anything like that.
Yeah.
And that would make sense with the way that they did the first generation Ryzen, where it was a case where, you're basically using the same silicon on all of them, and you're just disabling cores. So it would make sense because over time, as you get certain chips with maybe underperforming cores or whatever, you just disable those and sell them as lesser chips. So as they produce those, stocks grow.
Which is really good for yield rates, because even the ones with defective cores you can still sell. Right. So that's really good for AMD.
One of the cost saving benefits of being able to, and they've done that for generations now. That's nothing.
Did they do that? Did they do that back with the 6100 and the 4300 or whatever?
I would have to double check. I am almost 100% sure they did, though. I don't see the way that architecture was. It would make sense that they would sell those in 2-core increments that way. And same thing for the Ryzen cores with the CCXs. Yes. But that's also why, even though the CCX modules, you can have more cores. That's why the Ryzen 5 chips still had the 2 modules, the 2 quad-core modules.
Yep.
So it makes sense from that perspective. So last thing here, at least as far as the Ryzen 2 goes, if you hadn't upgraded, so you still had your old pre-built Intel i3-2120 paired with a
terrible
GTX 660 shoved in there, what CPU GPU combo would you try to go for?
Well, I really like the 2600 or the 2600X, and I don't know. I don't know which one I would choose, to be honest, because they both are really attractive. And as far as GPU, geez, everything's terrible. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have a 1080 Ti, so money's not too much of an issue. So I mean, go that route. But I don't know that I would right now because I haven't seen any 1080 Ti's for under 1,000 or very many for under $1,000 recently.
Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on those, and
Oh
what
my
what I've
goodness.
been seeing is like you can get them for between 900 and 950 right now.
Yeah, that's before tax.
And yeah, and that's the other thing. That's before tax. Now we're in Indiana, so it's a little different. A lot of states still don't have to pay sales tax for places like
Oh,
Newegg.
that's right. That's right.
The only reason we do in Indiana is because Newegg has facilities in Indiana.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yes. So had they had no offices or any facilities in Indiana,
That.
we likely wouldn't be paying sales tax. Now that obviously has come back to bite some people in the butt recently. I don't know if you've heard about the whole sales tax issue that I think it might have been Connecticut.
No, I haven't.
I could be wrong on this. So the real short version of this is Newegg was not charging sales tax because they don't have facilities there. But most states have a what's called use tax, which is a similar idea, except it is for things that aren't subject to sales tax. And I get most of my information on this topic from Jay's 2 cents because he went in depth with a little bit with this. But he talked about how he bought a lot of his really expensive camera equipment from out of state. But when he took it back to California, he still had to pay a use tax on it.
Okay.
So in Connecticut, because Newegg hadn't been charging sales tax, apparently the state Department of Revenue contacted Newegg and says either you can start collecting sales tax and submitting it to the state, or you can give us a list of all the transactions that are subject to sales tax.
Goodness.
Now, the thing for Newegg is if they decide to start implementing that comes with some overhead cost to them.
Yeah.
So instead, Newegg decided to provide the state with the names and addresses or the information of people that had purchased items on Newegg without paying taxes. So then the state sent collection notices to all those people for like, I think it was 3 years, like it was something like 2014, 2015, 2016, maybe it was 2015, 2016, 2017, something like that. It was a few different years though. And those people, and to me, here's my opinion of it is that's wrong. Now, yes, they technically should have been paying their taxes and technically are on the hook for it. But those are people that may not be aware of the tax laws and what exactly they are and aren't liable for. But if you're somebody like me that, on Amazon in any given year, I can spend $5,000-$6,000. Well, suddenly getting a notice that in a couple weeks' time I have to come up with, in Indiana, 7 or 8% of that, depending on where you live. That could be a chunk of change, or a business that may not have been aware of it, or it slipped through the cracks in their accounting department, or whoever that does their accounting hadn't caught that. That could be thousands of dollars of taxes.
That just seems like a blindside.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're kind of fortunate in Indiana though because Amazon already collects sales tax. Because they have facilities. Obviously, they have distribution center in Indianapolis. And the Newegg also has distribution center in Indianapolis. So we don't have to ever worry about getting a collection notice from either of those companies. But the whole point of that is even if you're not paying sales tax, it's possible you might want to square some money away just in case you get a notice from your state. Because the other thing is, like I said, I think it was Connecticut, could be wrong, but that also sets a precedent for other states that are trying to make up some of the revenue loss, because I'm sure that states are hurting when people are more and more shopping on Amazon, Newegg, and other online retailers that may not be collecting that sales tax. So that's Ryzen 2. Those look like they're coming out, supposedly anyways, April 19th. So in the next month, and that in the CPU market has been one of those few areas where it's actually consumers are doing very well in that area.
Right now, anyways.
Very consumer friendly since Ryzen launched. Because it's so competitive and there's not really any sort of shortage with any of the parts that go into building a processor. So
For right now, anyways.
For right now.
At times we've seen some small shortages, like when Coffee Lake first launched.
Right.
There were some shortages, but I mean,
and Ryzen was the same way briefly when it launched. The Ryzen APUs for the most part were in stock. There was a brief period where Amazon was restocking, but they were never like just sold out for an extent. And Coffee Lake was its own little problem because I think that was more of a case of Intel just hadn't had enough time to produce enough for launch, and they rushed it out the door, is what it sort of sounded like.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Coffee Lake, that's actually a really good transition into the other thing I want to talk about, and that is the rumored Intel 8-core processors that are supposed to land later this year. Now, what's interesting is that they're listed as Coffee Lake processors.
Coffee Lake S is what I'm seeing, but yeah.
Right, Coffee Lake S, but and I haven't looked. Does that mean? And I feel like it would, unless you're really wanting to confuse consumers. That should mean, though, that Z370 should work with those, shouldn't it? I lied. It the article says only Z390. Yeah, so I lied immediately.
It's Intel.
It's Intel, and I mean, I'm sorry, but it's already confusing enough because we have AMD's X370 and Intel's Z370.
And that was mostly on AMD trying to poach numbers.
Oh, no, I absolutely believe AMD did that totally on purpose.
Yeah.
Almost just to, like, poke the bear a little bit, I really think. Because if for no other reason, you're at Fry's or Micro Center and you're an uninformed consumer and you see Z270 at the time motherboard and next to it's an X370 motherboard. Well, a bigger number is better, right? That means it's better. So I buy that and then I go to my set. What processor goes with this? Oh, AMD. Okay, well I'm suddenly on the AMD platform without ever doing any research. There I am. So no, I totally agree. That was totally on. And we also have the same situation with the X399.
Yeah.
Versus the X299.
Yep.
So Coffee Lake S 8-core processors. Supposedly gonna launch, I believe, second half of 2018 sometime.
Yep, that's what I'm seeing as well.
And for, like I said, I'll link all these articles I'm sort of looking through right now. I'm looking at that Forbes article with their little chart. They actually had an engineering sample that appeared on a benchmark database.
That's what I would do if I was an engineer.
And my job is suddenly eliminated. Now, don't pay any attention to the stock clocks and the max turbo clocks, because engineering samples, they're not clocked up to where they, especially this early on, it will not be at the same clock that it will actually ship with. Period.
Not even close.
Not even close. But it's interesting because I've talked before and you've sort of poked fun at me a little bit because I have an 1800X in my main system. You have an 8700K. So on the CPU side of things, especially in gaming, but even in productivity, I imagine, the 8700K is going to be the 1800X. Even with the 1800X overclocked to 4 gigahertz, an 8700K overclocked, what do you run yours out, 4.8?
5.0.
Oh, that's right. You did hit 5.0 finally.
On 1 and 2 cores, it can do 5.1.
Oh, so the Intel chips, core for core, clock for clock, are still considerably better than AMD's.
Yes.
So what this chip does is you now have a mainstream chip that can also match AMD core for core. And what'll be interesting though, because Intel, and it drives me nuts, but Intel can match AMD core for core, clock for clock, but still probably, because I'm guessing this chip will be again see a price bump compared to the 8700K.
I would think so.
I'm really wondering how close it can get with dollar for dollar performance.
I bet it's fairly close, but most people would not need that extra performance, I don't think. So, I mean, it would still be wasted money.
Right, and there are those people out there in the world, and you may know one of them.
Nope, not at all.
That has this thing where they almost need to have like the best of the best. Now, I'm not yet to the point where I need the best of the best high-end desktop setup, because even though my desktop I would totally classify as a high-end desktop, it does not have the X299 or X399 chips. I'm still rocking the mainstream stuff. But if I'm a person building a mainstream rig, then if I have that compulsion where I need the top end mainstream chip, maybe that's where they're going with that is or maybe there's those people that look and say, oh, well, 8 cores versus 6, 8 has to be better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some that hopefully, and most of the people that watch my channel and really frequent tech channels on YouTube, I feel like those are not the people that just walk into a Micro Center and say, give me the most cores you have.
Yeah, definitely not.
Those are not the same people. But if you're looking on like Dell's website and you see, you know, a couple pre-builts, one says an 8-core 16-thread chip. First of all, you probably don't know what threads are. You're probably thinking it's like the thread count in your sheets.
Nope.
But then you see it next to an 8700K, which is only 6 cores and 12 threads. Well, I could see why somebody might go ahead and pick the AMD chip, even if they don't really know what they're doing. So I didn't see a specific launch date or even launch month that this was speculated other than the second half of 2018.
That's all I'm seeing as well.
So it'll be interesting, and it does sort of get us into that loop of graphics cards are not in this loop right now, but usually with technology, you get into a loop of, do I upgrade now or do I upgrade later?
Yeah.
Well, right now, it seems to me that there is no loop in graphics cards because the Pascal chips have been out for 2 years now.
And the AMD chips have been out for essentially almost 2 years now.
AMD's chips are
inferior.
I mean, in every way. The only way they're not is in mining.
I would say at certain price points, they make compelling or made compelling arguments.
And they do. And if you need compute performance, that's a whole nother issue for the average for the average mainstream gamer, the person that's not really using graphics cards for workflow, that don't need specific things from their graphics. You just need it to run a game. The 580s, when they were near MSRP, or really at MSRP, the 580s and the 1060s went, blow for blow. You could go either way with them. But and the 584 gig would beat the 1063 gig all day long.
Yeah, because the 1063 gig is
right. It's
weird.
not a 1060. It's a 1060 minus Ti.
Essentially,
that's kind of what it comes off as, because it's and there it goes. Tech companies really need to learn naming schemes. Like, I have no problem with the number convention that's going. What I do have a problem with is calling something a 1060 when it's just not.
Yeah, they have the same name and they're different cards.
Or they could have listed the 3 gig as the 1060 and called the 6 gig the 1060 Ti.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would have been fine.
That differentiates.
Because they do that with the 1050s. They do that now with the 1070s and 1080s. They have the 1050 Ti, 1070 Ti, 1080 Ti. 1060 is the only one they don't do that with, but they still have 2 different cards.
Yep. Dumb.
So they're not even following their own convention there.
And then the Titan's a whole nother animal.
Yeah, there's the Titan X, big P, little p. Although the big P is the unofficial big P, and it's really the X little p. And
don't talk about NVIDIA Titans with people who don't know exactly what you're talking about, because it's just confusing.
And then there's a Titan Z from a few years ago. There's a Titan V now.
Yeah.
So in some ways they're working forwards and backwards in the alphabet.
They're doing whatever they want.
Yeah, they really are. And I guess you could even bring up, I really like how the new NVIDIA cards that are hopefully coming this year, although I see no reason why NVIDIA would try to bring new cards to the market, to be honest. But the new cards that are coming or should be coming, I really like that suddenly the naming convention that seems to be pushed and accepted by outlets is the 2080, not the 1180.
Yeah.
Because even though up until the 1000 series we were going up by 100 each generation, suddenly now that we hit that, and I could see why it could be confusing if you don't. But I'll be interested to see if they go the 2080 route, or maybe they'll throw the monkey wrench and go the 1180 route.
I actually saw some stuff, I want to say like a month or two ago, to where different articles had it as the 1180 or the 2080. So we'll see what actually happens.
Yeah. Naming conventions. It's not a big deal for me because I stay in the loop enough that it won't be a big deal. But again, I'm not the average consumer of computer. I mean, I was saying yesterday when we were at lunch that I have something like 10 computers, like desktop, 10 desktop computers. And the thing is, many of them are actually in use. They're not just actually sitting around. I have a few that are sitting around, but most of them are actually in use in some way. I mean, I have a test bench here. I have my main rig. Behind me is fiance's desktop for work. Then we have a living room one. We actually have a couple living room ones. I have several that are actually in use. And I just bought that $110 Dell pre-built, the used Optiplex. I'm actually really looking forward to that because I'm gonna pull this 1050 Ti and see how it performs in it. Because it's a quad.
I really like the 1050 Ti.
I really liked it when it was $150.
Yeah.
I got mine, and I kind of got lucky because I sort of saw it coming, and I got mine when it was going up in price, but it was like $170 or something like that.
Yep, I got mine at MSRP.
Yep, you got in the door before prices jumped.
Yep, before the whole secondary mining wave, I guess, in November or whenever it was.
Right. Okay, well, those are the two topics, plus the other side tracks that we got on that I really wanted to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a wrap. Again, I'll leave Aaron's channel down in the description below in case you're interested in Minecraft-related things. A lot of your stuff is more long-form, isn't it?
Yes,
like long-form how-tos. You're doing the, 1 billion iron ingot challenge?
Yeah. I have 200 million right now.
1 billion, 200 million. Wait, when did you start this whole challenge?
December 26th, actually.
So in December, so we're 4 months later.
3 months.
Well, we're almost in April.
It's
3 months. Yeah, it was the end of December. Okay, I gotcha. Math is hard. So 3 months later, and how many videos so far have you done?
71 or 72.
And they're what, roughly about half an hour each?
Yeah.
So, oof.
Roughly.
Man. Wow. So yeah, that's a lot of editing.
It's not too bad because a lot of stuff takes me like 10 minutes between cuts or something.
That's fair.
I just did an episode with like 9 cuts though, so I mean that's gonna be challenging.
I think I'm looking down at the record length of this video, and I'm looking at it going, yeah, I'm just gonna cut off the front of it where we were still talking about the setup, and I'm gonna cut the end and add the transition and call it good. It's gonna be an easy edit.
Yeah,
it'll be a long render, but it'll be an easy edit.
There's nothing wrong with that, though.
Right. So I'll, again, for the third and final time, I'll link all these articles in the description down below, as well as Aaron's channel. If you like this content and you want to see more of these types of sort of bouncing ideas and talking, more of discussion type videos, likely with Aaron, give this video a like, share, subscribe, and comment. Those things are all very helpful to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. Aaron, do you have a Twitter or anything like that you use for your YouTube?
Not yet. Nope.
All right. Well, maybe someday in the future you'll have one of those that I can plug. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos around the screen for you to watch from my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.